has been slain. An enemy has been slain. An enemy has been slain. An enemy has been slain. Double kill.
What's going on, everybody? It's Killswitch coming back for another Teacher Tuesday episode. I'm going to start this one off like I usually do with all of these and say thanks a ton for all of the support for the channel, the likes, the views, the subscribers, all of that stuff. I see it's been still slowly rising. That's awesome. That means these videos are getting out to everybody. I'm glad you guys are watching them. Hopefully they're helping out in some way, shape, or form. I know they're lengthy. I know that can be kind of a turn off to viewers, but just so you know, like I'm trying to be as in depth as I can. These aren't particularly like these aren't necessarily videos that are like, hey, you're brand new to this game, you should watch this video on this hero. That's not necessarily what it's for. It's more for like, you've got your PvE games under your belt, you're looking to hop in, you really like this hero during your placement matches and so on and so forth, and you want to get a little bit more in depth with how the abilities work and what items should I build, when should I build them, stuff like that. I do plan on doing some kind of more beginner stuff in the future, as far as like, things to know, like day one type stuff. So stay tuned for that. But as far as these go, this is going to be a little more in depth. I'll try to keep them as short as I can, as I'm sitting here ranting for the first 2-3 minutes of this video, but I will from here on out try and shorten them up as much as I can. I also got some feedback, maybe throwing in some actual like little clips of the abilities as I go over them, just to kind of visually show what they do. That's something I plan on adding as well. So, without further ado, let's hop into our hero of the week. And so I'm gonna stick to kind of the bruiser, brawler, tank, jungler, offlaner, that type of niche that I usually do, because that's kind of what I know best. This week's hero is actually going to be Sevarog. So Sevarog's kind of been like under the gun lately, or really all the time, because he's such a cool looking hero. He does a lot of cool stuff. He looks cool, like his kit is really cool, but it kind of comes up short in some scenarios. So I'll kind of go in depth on why that is and how to maybe mitigate some of that. There's going to obviously be situations where you're going to struggle. There's always going to be situations for every hero, for the most part, that you're going to struggle, like matchups or situations, counter jungling, aggressive duo lane, certain types of support. Like there's always going to be situations where you're going to struggle, and I'll kind of explain those, and I'll explain the situations he excels at as well. So getting into this here, looking at his base stats, I kind of just briefly cover these again. Really no point. Something to note though is, as tanky and as health stacking as he is, his starting health is actually relatively low, and that's gonna kind of like be the precursor to like the explanation of like his kit as a whole, and like how you progress him to become the hero he's supposed to be. Everything else pretty basic, pretty standard stuff. 30 on the physical and energy armor. The physical damage, so his starting physical damage on his auto attacks, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is the highest out of everyone, or like one of the highest. That's nothing really to like buy into. What's not listed on these, and I haven't really gone over this with any of my other videos, but what's not on this base stats list on the Learn tab, which is on the website. So I'm going to go ahead and cover that right now. Actually, I'm going to pull this screen over here so that you can see this. This is the base stats and growths for Sevarog per level. And so you'll see down here, each one of these stats shows you in parentheses next to the value how much they gain of that value per level. So base health, you're going to get 73 health per level, health regen 0.15 per level, base mana 44, and so on and so forth. So if you ever want to see that for a hero in particular, what they scale as far as per level, you can just come over here to you go to the playfault.com. You'll go up here to your tabs, you'll go to game and learn. And so this is also where you can pull the aspects and items as well from. But you can just click on heroes and then you'll find them down here in the list. So it's pretty simple. And I know it doesn't make like too big of a deal. I know it's not like the numbers aren't huge or anything, but it's still kind of cool to see like what stats are kind of preferred, if you will, on these heroes. Not to say that you can't build them how you want to or whatever, but just it's nice to see. It kind of puts things into perspective for you. So, but anyway, that is that. So let's hop into now the abilities, and I'm gonna kind of like briefly cover these, and I'm gonna throw up a little clip kind of on repeat to just kind of show you like what the ability does like in a live setting. But I'll briefly cover these abilities, and then really where I'll get into like the meat and potatoes of it is down here at the passive. So I might speed through these a little bit, but just know I'm going to cover the main kind of premise behind it down at the passive. So starting off with Siphon. So that's going to be his huge, this is basically what his kit is built around. Now, the reason for that is not because of the damage or anything like that, which it does deal 65, 80, 95, 110, 125 energy damage in a short line. And then this is what makes it so important right here. Killing a unit with Siphon grants 2 times the souls for Reaper's Gain. And again, Reaper's Gain being his passive. It does have a 50 energy scaling, 6 second cooldown at all levels, 30 mana cost at all levels, and then if you notice down here, the range and the width of this ability increases as his passive tier increases as well. So that's something to keep in mind with his passive. I say that his kit is based around Siphon. It's really based around the passive, but the Siphon kind of goes hand in hand with it because of this part right here, and I'll explain more what that means when I get into the passive. So just know, energy damage, you get 2 times the souls for the passive, and then as your passive increases in level and tier, your width and range of your Siphon will increase as well. So, moving on to Subjugate. Subjugate is his E ability. So summon a ring of dark energy, dealing 80, 150, 115, 150, 185, and 220 energy damage, and rooting for 1, 1.2, 1.4, 1.6, and 1.8 seconds in a small area. So now what I want to cover here is this is a little bit misleading in a way. So the root duration actually doesn't increase with his with the level per ability. It actually increases with the level of passive tier. Now, the reason that, or the way I know this, I actually had to clarify this with some other players. I actually hit up some of the guys who've been playing for a while just to clarify, because I also looked at this and was thinking like, oh, so not only does his root duration increase per passive tier, but it also increases per ability level too, which that's not the case. And I'll credit actually Black Tim's for that one. He helped me out with that. I hit him up pretty late one night and asked him, because I was going over this and couldn't figure it out. So big shout out to him for that one. But aside from that, so you get slow enemies by 20, 22.5, 25, 27.5, and 30% for 1.5 seconds after the route ends. And so that movement speed slow increases with the ability level, not with the passive tier. The thing that, or the stat or effect that goes up with his passive tier is again the route duration. So here's your damage per level, per ability level, and there's your energy power scaling. Your movement speed slow, which again will level up with the ability. Your cooldown, which will go down with your ability level. Your range, 1650 units. That's pretty good range. Your radius, 280. That's not big. It's decent sized. If I had to guess, I would say probably like if you lined up 3 enemy heroes like kind of side by side, that would be your diameter ish, like not 100%, but somewhere around there. Like you're not going to be able to catch a whole team in it unless they're just like right on top of each other for some reason, which, you know, that rarely ever happens. But and then your mana cost is 70, 80, 90, 100 and 110 at max level. So overall, that's pretty manageable mana cost. That's about right on par with what a like crowd control ability would be. So yeah, that covers his subjugate. So now let's hop into his ultimate. That's going to be his colossal blow. That's the big hammer swing. Displace enemy heroes in a frontal cone and deal 140, 220, 300 energy damage at max level. That energy power scaling is 80, so a little bit higher than his other 2 abilities. The cooldown is 80, 70, and 60 seconds at max level. So that's actually really good for an ultimate ability, especially with building some cooldown reduction on Sevarog. This will be down into like the low 30s, I would think. I think like 35, maybe. That's really good for your ultimate. Your mana cost, 80, 100, 120. That's not too bad. That's pretty manageable, especially for an ultimate. Your range, 600 units, and then your angle is 65 degrees. So that's a pretty good angle. It covers, I would say, pretty much anything in front of you to an extent. Like you couldn't hit something that's standing right next to you, even though you could, you know, see them in your peripheral. But like, it's got a pretty good angle on it. So next is his left mouse button, this auto attack. Nothing crazy about this, even though he does have like one of the higher starting auto attack damages. I wouldn't buy into that as much. Moving to his right mouse button, that is his Phantom Rush. So dash forward, ghosting through enemies along his way. So that's pretty simple, right? It's just a dash. You ghost through any enemy through your dash, so that's pretty cool. It looks cool. He just kind of like, you know, he is always like hovering here. He just kind of like does a little Reaper-like dash through and ghosts through enemies. Pretty cool little ability. Cooldown's pretty high. 18, 16 and a half, 15, 13 and a half, and 12. I mean, even, you know, with your cooldown reduction built towards the end of the game or whatever, this will be down closer to like 7 or 8 seconds or something like that. But still, it's fairly high. Mana cost is pretty low, 45. That's not bad at all. And then notice down here, your distance per passive tier. So 800, 900, 1,000, 1,100, and 1,200. So your distance traveled goes up as your passive tier goes up. And again, I will explain what that means here in just a second. But pretty good distance, 1,200 units. That's pretty far. Getting to max tier on his passive. So overall, a good ability. It's a little weak starting off, but I mean, and a high cooldown, but that's the idea is Sevarog builds as the game goes, so that kind of makes sense. Alright, so let's hop into his passive ability here. So it's Reaper's Gain. So devour the souls of the enemies Sevarog kills with his abilities, gaining soul stacks. Minion kills grant 1 stack. Jungle buffs grant 4 stacks. Hero, Raptor, and Helix kills grant 8 stacks. Soul stack. So for every soul stack that you have, you gain 1 maximum health and 0.5 siphon damage. That's just straight like damage modifier, basically adding to the base damage of the ability. Gain additional energy power and max health at 50, 100, 200, and 350 soul stacks, as well as modifying basic abilities. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about your passive tiers. So each one of these milestones here is a tier, essentially. So once you hit 50 soul stacks, you will move to what's effectively tier, I guess, 2. I guess you start at tier 1, level 1. Hitting 50 essentially gets you to tier 2. 103, 204, and 350 will put you at tier 5, or your max level, whatever it is. And then as well as modifying basic abilities. So that's the part right there that I was kind of referring to about like his dash, distance per passive tier, his subjugate, his root duration per passive tier, his siphon, width and range per passive tier. So that's what that means when it says as well as modifying basic abilities. And the energy power per passive tier, so you'll gain 10, 15, 20, 25, and 25. And that is a cumulative stat right there. And same for the health. So at this number of stacks, not only are you gaining 1 per stack, but you're gaining this additional amount on top. So basically at your 50 stacks, you're getting 100 health. At your 100 stacks, you're getting 170 health. 200, you're getting 335. And at 350, you're gaining, 485. And that's just bonus on top of the health that you already have and the health that you're building. That's just a bonus. It's not saying it's scaled off of anything like that. That's just here you go. Here's 485 health just for hitting 350 soul stacks. So that's what that means. That's why this siphon ability is so big for his kit, because if you remember on Siphon, killing a unit with Siphon grants 2 times the souls for Reaper's gain. So if you were to hit a Hero, Raptor, or Helix kill with your Siphon, you're going to get 16 stacks instead of 8. That's huge, considering your minion kills grant 1, 2 if you kill it with Siphon. So you could take your entire red side jungle or whatever, you get your red buff, so that's going to get you 4, and so with Siphon that's 8, and then you've got 6 minions over there which will give you 12. That's 20 stacks, whereas 1 Hero, Raptor, or Helix kill gets you almost just as much with 16. So that's something to keep in mind. The power farm aspect to Sevarog is very real. It takes some time to come online once you start stacking these soul stacks and getting the health and the energy power and stuff like that. But something that seems to be forgotten a little bit is that you can siphon hero kills to get stacks as well. Real early on, it's not maybe the best approach, but it is an option and it's there. So just remember that as you're going through the game. It's always nice to save that siphon for an easy kill or something like that to get some stacks. It's only going to put you ahead. So, all right. So with that being covered, I'm going to hop into the build and the aspects. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up on the Playfault website. I'm going to pull up our aspects. And so for Sevarog, there's a couple of ways you can go about Sevarog. I would say the safest option is probably going to be Titan and Beast Hunter if you're playing jungle Sevarog. I feel like the bonuses that you get from both of these only just play into his strengths. So you'll gain 10 endurance and slow resistance and gain up to 20% more endurance at 30% max health. And then you've got Pelt Collector, which grants adaptive power and health based on minion kills. Stacks 200 times. So 200 stacks. Again, you're already stacking minion kills and such. This is essentially going on the same concept. Titan, after taking damage from an enemy hero, you're going to gain health regen for 10 seconds, and then subsequent attacks refresh the duration, and then you receive 2% of your bonus health as adaptive power. So again, essentially, you're being rewarded for having health. It's giving it to you as energy power. And what does his passive do? His passive tiers, it gives you health and energy power. So literally goes right along with it. Now, something you can also run with Sevarog is Queen. You could run like Queen and Titan. Maybe you're in the off lane. Maybe you run Queen and Titan. So now instead of getting that Beast Hunter passive, the Pelt Collector and this and that, you're getting 1 energy power for every 6 minion kills. And you gain some ability vamp on your abilities, 3% on area of effect abilities. So now you're gaining energy power for, once again, minion kills, which you're already doing. So this is a good like kind of tech option. Maybe you want to go into a little bit more of a damage dealing build, Sevarog. Maybe you go Queen and Titan, so as you build both health and minion kills, you're just being rewarded for it. I haven't really had a whole lot of success with any of these other aspects for Sevarog. I guess if you wanted to go into just a pure like tank, Rook wouldn't be a bad option, although you don't get as much out of it. There's not as much synergy with his kit. But you do gain more tankiness at times under certain circumstances, so like it can be beneficial to you. I don't see any real helpfulness to any of the purple aspects. You're especially getting favor, you're not going to gain anything really because we're not going to build much into his physical damage. He's going to mostly get his damage from energy power, which is why I kind of feel like having the blue and green favor options. You get energy power or health, which are 2 things that you're going to be building, stacking as the game goes along. So that's kind of why I would either go green or green-blue with Queen. You could go Magician, but I don't feel like that takes as much advantage of War Mage because your cooldown's already pretty low on your ultimate anyways. The missing mana regen is nice. But I feel like getting the energy power to help Sevarog build his abilities and make him stronger helps out a little bit more, plus the ability vamp. Early game, that's going to be pretty big for him just because he has a hard time sustaining early. So again, I feel like this just kind of beats it out altogether. But those are your kind of your options. And of course, if you see something that you want to try out or you think might work, or you're theory crafting and you're looking at this stuff and saying, I want to try this and this, go for it. I mean, if it works, it works. I'm not saying that any of these won't do something for the hero. It's just that if you want to maximize the synergy with the build and the kit and everything, this would be like your best options here with kind of some like runner-up options as well. So with that being covered, let's go ahead and hop into the build for Sevarog. So building Sevarog, kind of like, this one is a little bit more of like a straight line build. In a sense, there's not a whole lot of like deviation from what you can build or what you should build or what works the best. Now there are some like fun options you can try. But being that Sevarog has such a rough early game, it's almost like imperative that you build certain items or you build certain stats early to help you. Now, if you're running him jungle, his starting kit is going to be the same. You're going to go the Affliction, you're going to go the Health Pot, and the Rad Pulse. That's pretty standard for just about any jungler, except for a few that I've kind of covered in the past. But outside of the starting kit, one of your options is actually, and one of the a really good option for Sevarog is going into your Almighty Gale first, and that is your upgraded affliction item for the green tree. So what this is going to do is it's going to give you health cooldown reduction, and it's also going to give you the passive of the crushing presence. So essentially it's like a mini baleful armor. It's a good early game item, and it helps with his wave clear. Now, something to remember though with that is that wave clear, that crushing presence, can affect your ability to siphon your minions correctly too. So that's just one of those things you kind of have to, you almost just have to try it out and see it and see how it plays so that you can kind of work around it with your siphon. It does deal damage over time consistently to those minions, so if you've got one low and you're thinking, alright, I'm going to go hit this other one, well, now your Almighty Gale tick just killed it. So something to keep in mind if you build into this. Outside of that starting item, another good item you can start with is just about anything that's going to make him a little bit bulkier, just to get through the early game while you're stacking your soul stacks. Something I've been trying here lately a lot with him is actually running building into blighted chestplate first, but what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and buy this acidic iron right off the bat. It gives some armor, also gives the passive of trauma, which I know early on isn't like super big or anything, but it seems like a decent amount of physical armor right off the bat with that extra little added trauma. You could probably sub this out for just about any other type of armor, health item, whatever it may be. You could even like build into, like, say you weren't going to go into Almighty Gale first, maybe you wanted to go into Baleful Armor first. You could still buy this Sigil of Fervor right off the bat just to help with your wave clear and to give you a little bit of extra health, with the intention of later coming in and finishing it off with the Baleful Armor. There's kind of limitless ways you can go about it, but trying to maximize the usefulness of the item early on is the struggle, I feel like, for Sevarog. It's trying to keep yourself viable, but also still building your tankiness as the game goes on. Something else you can even look into is like something like Shield of Mirrors, because Thorn Shield's a good item to build into later in the game. It gives health, it gives some physical armor, and some cooldown reduction. And that's essentially the type of stuff you're going to be building, with a few variants here and there. But anything with health, physical armor, energy armor, cooldown reduction, energy power, like those are your big like 4 or 5 stats that you're going to want to look for. A typical end game build for me would probably look something like a blighted chestplate, a ring of rejuvenation, a knight's battle plate, wherever it is, there it is. So a knight's battle plate, and then an arcane surge, which is a more offensive card, but this might be the only offensive card you need to build in a game, particularly like 80 energy power, 250 mana, cooldown reduction, and you get that kill claw passive, which is the same as like a stimulant gauntlet or the where is it, the assassin version, the bio infuser. So it's going to give you the same type of passive that these items do. It's just kind of more of your energy damage variant. So it's a really good item, especially because late game you're going to be spamming your siphon and your subjugate as much as you can, so you're going to get that bonus damage off of it. Pretty good. Not saying you have to build this one. It's a good item for a Sevarog type hero. I would say the same for like a Magus crossbow, kind of the same type of thing. It's giving you energy power, cooldown reduction, attack speed, and then it's giving you an additional damage on your basic attacks based off your energy damage. So it kind of scales well. You don't have to build any physical damage, but you get a little bit of a boost to your auto attacks. So you can throw that one in there as a potential item. Thorn Shield is a good item. Baleful Armor is a good item. Pretty much anything that's going to help you get tanky. It's going to give you health, energy armor, physical armor, cooldown reduction, energy power. You can start stacking a Mage's Siphon early. The only thing I would say is that if you're going to go this route, it makes things more difficult early game for you, just because now you're not only relying on stacks from your passive, but now you're relying on stacks from this item as well. So it's just kind of something to weigh. You know, early game, is this worth getting? Am I ahead enough that this isn't going to hinder me in some type of way? So something to keep in mind with this one. But yeah, other than that, like I said this is kind of more of a straight line build. Like you're basically looking for a set 4 or 5 stats and not really straying from that. As far as your boots go, you're probably more than likely going to build one of the green boots. And it's going to be situational as to what the enemy team has. If they're more physical damage based, you could go into Stoic. If they're more caster and energy built, you could go into the wraps. I would say probably the wraps, just because you also gain the endurance. It's a cool bonus to have, especially early on. If you build them second or third item, you're going to get a pretty good value out of it. Since you're not as tanky early. So, but other than that, you've got a few tech items you could build. You could always go into Cataphract. Although it doesn't give you any health, it does give you a lot of physical armor and some cooldown reduction. And it does kind of it does go along with his kind of frontline attitude that he has with the aura and the passive. Basically getting smacked by basic attacks is going to help him out. And then the aura of enemy heroes and that radius have their attack speed reduced. So basically this is just rewarding you for being at the front line. So those are probably what I would consider the best options. And then you've got like items like PS. That's a good item, although it doesn't give any energy power or armor or anything like that. It does give you a ton of health. It does give you a ton of cooldown reduction and some health regen out of combat. So it's a really good item. It would definitely boost your like Titan aspect. So that's a good kind of alternate item depending on what you have built already. Another good one, Eldritch Flame. Health, cooldown reduction, energy power, and the burn on ability hit. That's also, I mean, it's up there as one of my favorite items for him, but sometimes it just doesn't apply to the situation. So that's in there. You've also got Warlock's Aegis, gives you that spell shield, gives you some energy power, some cooldown reduction, and some energy armor. I try and stick to, if I'm building some armor, I try and stick to cards that also give health as well. With the exception of like Knight's Battleplate, just because it gives such a good amount of both and CDR. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you're building armor, typically it helps to build health with it because of how good the items that give you that are. So just something to keep in mind for you there. And that's basically going to cover the build. Like I said, pretty much covered everything that you need to know. Covered all the items that kind of give you the stats that you want. So I hope this helps. I hope all of these guides are helping you guys out. If you have feedback for me, again, throw it down in the comments. Find me on the Fault Elder Orb Discord page. You can get a hold of me there. I do post these in the lessons channel there as well. But otherwise, yeah, thank you guys for all the channel support. Thanks for all the views and everything. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, I hope all of these are helping in some way, shape, or form. So if you have some feedback, or if you have an idea for another hero, or maybe you have something you want me to add to my videos to help clarify something more, let me know. Thanks, guys.